right, let's talk rice. The Lagos State Govt Wednesday unveiled a 30 billion naira Eko Rice futures contracts on the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange. Flotation was the first of its kind in Nigeria's history by a subnational or state government. Let's listen to the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu.
Less than a year ago, I was here, in this same exchange to launch the Eco coin. And that was the very first launch of any means of a commodity exchange, in this part of the world. And the board and the management did, assured us that it was not going to be the end. They were starting with commodity, with coin at that time, which was Eco coin, like a mineral. And they said to us that they'll be going to other means of commodity, right? And in less than a year, we've been able to identify a real and a true partner in the Lagos Commodity and Exchange platform. And Mr. Akhibi and the board, I want to thank you very much again. And so it's a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the launch of the 5 billion of the 30 billion Eko Rice Contract program on the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange. This program is a significant milestone in our efforts to promote agriculture and food security, not only in Lagos, but in our country. As we all know, agriculture is a critical sector of our economy, and we are all committed to the growth and the development of it. Our goal is to make Lagos a hub for agricultural production and processing in the country. And when we say a hub, we mean it by every facet of it. We believe that agriculture has the potential to create jobs, to create wealth, and to reduce poverty and enhance food security in our country. All of us have kept saying that we need to feed ourselves. We need to grow what we eat, and we need to eat what we grow. And we cannot but make Lagos as an example for that. We cannot give the reasons and excuse that because we're the tiniest state in the country and we have the largest population, we're just going to throw in the towel and we should not be able to provide food for our people. And so Lagos sees rice as an important staple. It is consumed by almost 80% of the Lagos family. It is therefore understood that it's a key driver of our economy and of food security, and a plan to ensure that we can continue to feed this large population. And so rice became a commodity that we believe has to be affordable and has to be available. And to achieve the entire value chain around the capacity building, which we started several years ago, was to enhance and improve the capacity of our local rice producers. And we did that over a couple of years. And I want to say that Dr. Fashola, who used to be my special advisor, who I'm sure will still have a role to play in Lagos, also led that conversation several years ago, and which led to us at that time setting up a small mill. It was about a 3 metric ton mill. But we became very audacious, and we wanted to take the bull by the horn. And so Lagos State, agreed to set up the largest rice mill in the whole of Sub-Saharan, and they said it's about the 3rd or the 4th largest in the world.
All right. Our guest for more on this is Mr. Akhibi Onoke, who is the CEO of the Factory Company. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, just to help us out, the Factory Company is a holding company and rice is one of the subsidiaries. Is that right? Can you help us clear that up?
Okay. The Factory Company is an agricultural holding company with subsidiaries in crop production, processing, and distribution. Because crop production, processing, and distribution are different sectors in the different segments in the value chain.
Okay.
So crop production is basically about primary production of crops, which is the farming aspect of it.
Yeah.
Then the processing is the milling aspect of it. Then the distribution is how you get the products to market, to consumers, and all of that.
Fantastic. So what do you make of this development from the Lagos State Govt?
I think it's a very good development. At least it creates a marketplace for the buying and selling of rice derivatives, so that we're not just looking only at the primary practitioners in this business. We also look at investors who can come to markets and speculate based on price movements. So if the exchange works well, is going to create a lot of awareness and create an alternative asset class, for investors to actually, participate, especially when you have inflationary environment like this, where stocks are not performing and earnings are low. Investors want to run away from the market and go to markets where they can actually make better returns on investment. So commodity exchanges always provide that, cushion and, opportunity.
Great stuff. So that's the commodity exchange. But, on the supply, I want to ask you about the supply side discussion around rice. The Lagos and Kebbi had that collaboration, Lake Rice, the Lagos Kebbi. We didn't really see much of the dividends on that. You're in this space, right, with your sweet rice, right? So what's the, as far as supply challenges, why we continue to talk about production versus consumption of rice, prices and so on and so forth? What haven't we got right there?
Okay, I'm not holding brief. I'm not speaking on behalf of Lagos State Govt. Okay. But I think that's, this structure was actually a crop, a crop production contract given to Kebbi State by Lagos State Govt. What has changed now is that Lagos State Govt has built its own capacity. You had the governor saying that they have the capacity to process 200,000 metric tons of rice per annum, and that is right here in Lagos in Imota. So all they have to do now is to mobilize the paddy stock to feed it, so that these contracts they are selling, they are able to actually meet the obligations.
Okay.
And that is really where the problem is. Paddy, growing paddy, enough paddy to be able to supply mills and for the price to come down. Because as it currently stands, it looks as if the demand-supply relationship for paddy, is skewed on the side of, the paddy growers. Okay. There's the farm output, the farm productivity is abysmally low. Most farms don't generate more than 1.5, 2 tons per hectare compared to global trends of 6 tons, 7 tons per hectare. So even if you put millions of people in the farms, they really don't come up with much.
Yeah.
Then you have this issue of banditry and unrest in crop producing areas. So I believe personally that, for us to start dealing with these issues frontally, we need to start looking at mechanized, commercial, crop production, where you actually take a piece of land and you turn it into a revenue center based on, good agronomic practices and, full-scale mechanization. Okay, so
what are you doing in your space with the sweet rice thing? Are you in one particular state? Are you scaled across the country? What's your own, I guess, how are you doing it?
Our operation is, basically, centered in Bida, Niger State, which is north central Nigeria. There we are close to, cluster of farmers, and we have a pool of agro farmers who supply us paddy. We also have vendors who supply us paddy, with which we meet our 60 tons, per day, processing capacity. Then we distribute, across selected markets, in Nigeria. We're strong in Lagos, we're strong in Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Edo State and Abuja.
Now, distribution is primarily by road, right? Because you're not using, we've talked a lot about rail and so on. I think you've already mentioned these shocks, because I think at the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting, 2 meetings ago, the now suspended governor was talking about why food inflation is still so high. And he mentioned road transportation costs. I think you've already mentioned insecurity in food producing areas, and then legacy infrastructure issues. How critical is it to address these issues in order to bring down price of staples like rice?
It is very critical.
Yeah.
Whether you are supplying inputs to the factory or you are taking finished products out of the factory to the target markets, you have to apply roads. Most of the time, these roads are completely unmotorable, and you find your trucks spending much longer time on the road than ordinarily they would. That costs into your time, which is, if you factor it into pricing, is significant. Then you also have and it affects the vehicles themselves, and if they're not your vehicles, the third-party vendors will price it into your cost of delivery, which you have no choice but to price into the cost of delivery for the consumer or the distributor. So these are significant issues. Then of course, when you now have places where you can't even go to, because there's so much unrest, you have to actually start worrying about safety and all those kinds of concerns. There are serious issues which only the government can really handle for the market.
Yeah. Okay, we're looking at production metrics, and there's so many of these production metrics across, but we're stuck with the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture's Foreign Agricultural Service, and you can see that from 2018 through 2022, in million metric tons, production is yet to meet up with consumption in Nigeria, and with populations are so large. We keep having this conversation every time. Sugar, maize, rice. For rice, and again, this is Nigeria, large country, large population, different states with different issues. Can we ever meet up? You think we can never meet up to, our production can never meet up to consumption?
Of course, production can meet up with consumption if we approach it on the basis of first principles. What exactly do we need to be able to produce the volume of crops that we need to be self-sufficient in food? Then we track it backwards. How do we start getting the utmost value, the optimal value out of land? How come our farmers are perennially underproductive when it comes to yield? These are the things that when you process them, you will see what the issues are. Then you deal with it. As a private business, what we are trying to do, we are integrating backwards into large scale commercial farming, creating farm estates, and to do that, we are building the teams, bringing in an agronomic partner, agronomists from outside the shores to actually help us create the basic elements required to actually get the best out of land. Then of course the issue of capital, which is what I mentioned earlier, that is important. It's good that Lagos State Govt is bringing attention, bringing rice to the capital market, letting people know that rice can be traded, that derivatives from rice can actually be traded and money made. So with this environment that is developing now, I'm very confident that something is going to start happening soon. Because if you look at how it's developed over the years, from Jonathan's administration to Buhari's administration and now this administration, there has been progress. Especially in Buhari's administration, a whole lot of investments was made in processing. I'm sure this government will prioritize primary production, and then that will be it. What about the climate aspect? If you remember I think it was the 2021 or the flooding in Kebbi that impacted production, and you're in Niger State, so in that middle belt area. How critical is climate as a challenge or a hurdle or a risk factor to production? I remember when that issue broke, the overall understanding was that a dam unraveled in Cameroon, and the volume of water that came to River Benue became much more than it normally was. Okay, but even at that, environmental risk is always priced into agricultural activities. And when you do that properly, you will see that when losses come, the policy, the insurance, we absorb it, so that I don't start going into bigger issues of climate change and all that. Right. I really don't think that hasn't really happened too many times. It's always about a dam overflowing, and if you do proper analysis, you wouldn't want to actually be on the parts of on the lowland where that water could overwhelm you. So I think this is part of planning properly, making sure that you have the right team, making sure that you are actually planning. You do your land development properly, and you get the kind of outputs that you are targeting. Have you had to increase? Let's talk about your space. Have you had to increase prices for your rice over the last year or so? And looking at with fuel subsidies being removed now, we've talked about road transportation. Well, what's your price outlook for your own? And I guess I've been looking at the prices of a bag of rice going forward. Okay, it's still too early to start making those calls, because most of the time you buy paddy in bulk and you deplete them over the period. Okay, and now we start having more regular production. The level of production for dry season farming has really gone up compared to how it was in the past. So we're still watching to see how everything unfolds. But the price of paddy has started going up steadily. But before you know what's happening, we're going to be back in the rainy season buying again. Our rainy season buying is always kind of cheaper because a lot more farmers are producing, rice during that period. So we're still, trying to see how, we can factor all of this into, our cost determination, program.
I just want to jump back to something you said on mechanized farming. Do you think about the cost of acquiring some of these machines and then the training them? Because I understand some of these machines cost as much as an SUV or a car or more, and then training the farmers to actually use them. What about those? Can we navigate those challenges to improve mechanized farming in Nigeria?
That's economic benefit if you look at it, because you are transferring technology. And when you acquire these machines, you can, use them for a whole long period of time.
Right.
Imagine having a D8 Caterpillar and it doesn't really go bad. Even if it does, you fix it and it's back on the road again. We just need to find ways to see that, we are not, going into it in some kind of gruel, hard, laborious way. And these things have been done elsewhere. They've been tested. Why should we continue to rely on antiquated means, to grow crops when it's obviously not working?
Okay. We see. I had more questions, or we run out of time. We're gonna have to have you back to talk more about rice, because it's my favorite food, by the way. So we have to have you come back and talk more about this. But thank you so much for spending time with us, Mr. Akhibi Onoke, CEO of the Factory Company, holding company for a number of crop production outlets here in Nigeria. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right.